Hi everyone, my name is Vidya Math and I'm an author and a poet. Summer is in full flow and I have never quite seen a summer like it. And this summer I have a new book, and this time it is a poetry book. And it is called Time Machine. It's called Time Machine because it has poems in it from different eras. And they were written at different times in different scenarios, some of them emotional scenarios, some of them scenarios that were hilarious, and some of them that really touch your heart in a way that makes you feel like when you have this little book in your pocket, it feels like having your best friend in your pocket. And I would love to treat you to one of the poems in the book today. So the first poem is called In the Passing of Time. In the passing of time, we lose ourselves and find new versions of us, or perhaps rediscover older versions we don't even remember existed. I remember playing in the sandpit at nursery when I was little. And one thing's for sure, I'd still love to be playing in sand, but this time on a sunny beach somewhere. This poem is quite self-explanatory. However, it does talk about what time can do to people. So we can start off as people with certain dreams, certain aspirations, and then we take the steps of life that life offers to us. So we may have this dream, this intention, that intention. But life might take us down a different journey. In fact, journeys that we may never have imagined. And in those situations, we almost need to rediscover ourselves. So we think we knew something about ourselves, and then situations might show us things that make us feel, okay, there's somebody else in there. There's someone else in there. There's someone stronger in there that I haven't met before. There's someone with a slightly different personality in there that I haven't met before and didn't know was in there. And things that happen in our lives can also change our reactions, our temperament. So this is a book that goes through different times. And that first poem certainly talks about the passing of time and what that can do to people. And so now I would like to read to you another poem from the book. This is a poem that's very close to my heart. It was a poem that was written a long time ago. And what I love about it is the way that it reads, the kind of rhythm of it, and also the sentiment. My waking thoughts. My waking thoughts are yours alone. I see you where you are not. The grass and trees around of me appear as if forgot. I see your smile in every flower. In the wind I smell your scent. Mirages take the form of you, like you are heaven sent. I close my eyes only to find that you are there as well. In a world that's mine, you cast on me your all-bewitching spell. I beg you sometimes, leave me be. Like a person chained, I fret, snared and trapped one fateful moment in your merciless net. I know no longer what I do. My mind is not my own. You claimed it once and kept it so. My mind is yours alone. So this poem is about the effect that things can have on us unexpectedly. We might be going about our business, living our lives, and just doing normal things, and all of a sudden we come across something. It could be a person, it could be an animal, it could be a bird, it could be a situation that upturns everything that we previously thought, and we're suddenly in a situation where we have feelings about something or someone, or a creature or an environment that makes us question what we felt before and necessarily changes our lives. This poem was written about a person, but I would like to talk about wildlife who have also had this effect on me. So, about 2 years ago now, I was in a very difficult situation in my life where I was facing unemployment because I had worked for a company who were moving all their operations abroad and I could not move abroad at the time. And as a result, many of us had to let go of our jobs. And at that time, the job market, and possibly still, was extremely difficult. And it really presented me with a situation where everything felt very hopeless and where I felt very helpless. I was doing all the right things, more than, but the situation was still very hopeless. And I went to the river, which is not far from here. And I thought, I'll sit on a bench and just look at the river. And because I couldn't really think of anything else that I could do. And I couldn't go and sit on the bench because about 12 to 13 swans came towards me, started rushing towards me. And I got scared because I'm not very tall, and swans are large, and they are these beautiful, majestic, incredible beings. And I got scared, so I ran off. And as I was running off, I had this thought, and this thought was, I must feed them. I must feed them. So I came home, and at the time I had to watch my money very carefully. And I bought a bag of wild bird seed off an app, and it arrived the next day. And when it arrived, I went back to the river and I took a little jar about this size. Bearing in mind, of course, there were 12 to 13 swans there, and the swans are almost as big as I am. And I took this bird seed, and there was a man where the swans are. There was a man crouched on the ground, and he had a big bag with bags of food for the birds there. And he had his hands open like this, and he had a swan feeding from each hand. And I just looked at him, and I didn't even know that he could do that. And so I asked him about it and what was happening. He said, "Oh yeah, they have no teeth. You know, you can feed them by hand." And so I was scared, but I thought, let me try. And I put some bird seed in my hand, and I held it out to one of the swans, and the swan fed from my hand. And I have to say that was probably, if not the best experience of my life, probably pretty close to being the best experience of my life. And this happened at a time of intense difficulty. And from there, I would go every day, sometimes quite late at night, to see them. And I got to know them. And they really changed my life. And so it can happen. And it's definitely one of the most beautiful things that's ever happened to me. So this poem that I just read is about a situation like that. And I would also like to read another poem to you. So again, the book is called Time Machine. And that's my name there, Vidya Math. And it's a poetry book, so it says on there. So I'd like to read to you a poem called Always Yours. We travelled over the mountains into different lives. Hundreds of years could not break our affection. We grow stronger instead, and know that even in 100 more years, you and I will still love each other and probably will forevermore. So this poem is actually not that old. I remember writing it maybe a couple or a few years ago. I'm not 100% sure whether it was inspired by a very, very old Korean song called Arirang, but I think it was written around about the time that I came across this incredible song called Arirang. And I don't know the exact origins, maybe nobody does, of this song. And I also do not know necessarily what the lyrics of it mean. But around about that time, I had almost like a spiritual experience of things that cross lifetimes and affections that cross lifetimes. And sometimes we come across things in life where we might be quite far removed from something, but we feel very connected to it. And so sometimes if we have no way of accessing some of the things that we love, you kind of wonder, well, where does this connection, where does this adoration, where does this love come from if you can't trace it back to your childhood or the life that you know of, that you live? And so I had a thought about that perhaps some of these things, they come from longer ago than, say, the life that we're conscious of. And perhaps that adoration and that connection and that love we have for these things is there and will be fulfilled and will be more accessible in a time that's yet to come. So that's what that song is about. And I would like to also read to you, it's called Time Machine. So there are a few poems in this book which relate to that theme. And one of the poems in this book is called The Cycle of Time. Sadness falls with darkness, another era gone. Just as the cycle of night and day, life rolls on and on. I've been here before, and probably before, but just as yesterday is no longer, I know it all no more. This particular poem, I guess, must have been written when I came across one of my old journals. So over my lifetime at times, I have journaled, and I don't know if you've ever tried this, but it's a pretty good form of therapy to write out your feelings and your thoughts. But one more interesting thing about it, which I had never thought about or realized at the time when I had written down my thoughts and feelings in the past, was that I would come across them again in the future and what they would mean to me when I came across them. And this has happened a few times to me where I have come across things I've written in the past and I could have written them today. So say I wrote something 10 years in the past, I might have actually journaled something that you could interchange with it. And while you look at whatever's happening in my life at the time, it might be drastically different. But the whatever's going on the inside seems to be pretty much consistent and constant. And I'm sure if there are any psychologists out there that you could maybe take it back to our formative years, our experiences that have shaped us, our genetics, maybe our ancestral leftovers that are left within us, things like that that shape how we feel. There will be so many factors we probably just could never put our fingers on what all the factors are. But that feeling of when you have a feeling and you're in a situation that you've probably felt that before and been there before in some shape or form. And that is what that poem is about. as life goes on and on. And I would like to end today with a very fun poem. And this is a very recently written poem, but it is written about something that happened a long time ago. And I've discussed this with a friend, a fellow writer, since I wrote the poem. In fact, the day that I wrote the poem, I actually wrote it sitting across from her. And then after I wrote the poem, I showed it to her. And then she did not expect that the poem would turn out the way that it did from when she started reading it at the top of the poem. And by the end of it, she was like, that really, really didn't go the way that I expected it to. And then we talked about it. And after I've read you the poem, I'm going to tell you how the conversation went with my friend. It's called The Dance. And I want to say before I read it, as a young girl and as a teenager and as a young professional, dance was the person I was. I had all sorts of other things that I was doing in life, working, all of that. But I lived to dance. So, or two things. I lived to dance and I lived to write. And of course, for the things that we love and the people that we love. The dance. Bells on my anklets jingle a fairy tinkle as I try and keep a low profile in the dark of backstage. I'm on next, and I don't know if I'm nervous, excited. Yes, I think so. The performance before me draws to a close. The countdown begins, and I feel something slacken at my hip. The elastic on my knickers has just snapped. How? 30 seconds. My skirt is tied together, a double knot with drawstring. I pull the knot apart, threading the strings through the strap of my tanga knickers and tie the drawstring again, double knotting it. The tech person nods. Cue me. So this is a little story in a poem of something that happened when I was backstage, and I had my costume on, and I was very, very used to this scenario. I used to give a lot of performances, and so I was very used to getting dressed up for the performances and standing backstage. And while I would be standing backstage, we would have the tech person who would be monitoring, how long the performance before would be taking, and then be feeding back to whoever was next to go on, 30 seconds, signaling 30 seconds. So this happened just before I was due to go on stage and just before my music started to roll. I have no idea how it happened. I can only hope that the elastic in underwear is more sturdy nowadays, because I was just standing still and suddenly felt this happening. And very luckily, the skirt that I was wearing at the time was a drawstring. And so I could untie it and thread it through and tie it up again. So if it hadn't been a drawstring, I really dread to think what would have happened. And if it had happened a tiny bit later, I wouldn't have had time to do this before I went on. But when I showed my friend the poem, she said something which I had never thought about before, possibly because it's such a horrific thought that I wouldn't have even wanted to think about it. She said, well, thank God it didn't happen like a minute later. And that's quite a sobering thought. And with that, I will leave you to think about the possibilities in life and the things that slightly save us sometimes. And so this is my new book. It's got a lot of fun in it. It's got a lot of feeling in it. And it is called Poetry Book Time Machine, and it's by Vidya Math. And I so hope that you have enjoyed this video. I have really, really enjoyed making it for you. I'm very excited about the book. I'm very excited for you to read the book. It is available widely globally. It's available on Amazon in two formats, so you can buy it as a paperback, and you can also read it on Kindle. And so you can also look it up and see where it's available. It will be available at local booksellers as well. And I will also put the Amazon link into the comment section below. And I hope to see you again soon. I'm going to wish you all the love in here, and I'm going to wish you a fantastic rest of the summer. Stay cool, and I will see you again soon.